Hi guys, it's Abby. Welcome back to my channel. This video is on progressed moon in Aries and in the first house. And I realized that in the previous lunar progression videos, I don't think I showed you guys how to actually calculate how to find it. So I'm going to show you. So I'm just going to minimize myself for a second here. Okay. So this is astro.com. And you need to have an account here to use this website, but it's free. You can save up to, I believe, 100 natal charts for free. So if you go here, and then you go to the chart selection and the extended chart selection, I think I'm going to disappear for a second. Okay, so I just choosing a random chart of someone I know whose progressed moon is in Aries, but if you scroll down to the progressions, you can look at natal and progress chart or the progress chart on its own. Both have merit, but I'm going to choose natal and progress chart for now. And you're going to see that this person has the green on the outside are progressed. So you can tell progress chart pretty easily because a lot of the slow moving planets don't change, like Neptune, Uranus, Saturn are all around the same area, Jupiter. The only things that are moving at all are the inner planets because progressions are super slow. And here's Aries up here. The progressed moon is in Aries. So you can see, and if you scroll down, it says what signs the natal placements are in, and the progressed moon is at 17 degrees Aries for this particular person. And then I'm just going to switch to my niece who has her progressed moon right now in her first house. So you can see it literally just entered her first house in Cancer. And so let's see, her ascendant is at 16 degrees Cancer. So in about 16 months or 15 months, it's going to approach her AC, her ascendant. So I use whole signs house system, which is why the signs are lined up with the houses. I've done videos on this before, and I think I explained why I switched. But if you use Placidus, which is the default system, you're going to have a different house system. You're going to have like cusps and things. I don't bother with that crap anymore. I think that this is a way better house system. It's simplified. It's ancient. It's way older than Placidus, so I switched like a couple years ago and I never looked back, but it's really up to you. So that is how you discover where your progressed moon is in astro.com. And those are two examples of Aries and first house. So to reiterate, what is the progressed moon? What is the progressed chart? The progressed chart is your natal chart sped up 1 day for every year you've been alive. That's why it moves super slow. It represents your evolving self. So the progressed moon specifically is the fastest mover because it takes 2.5 days for the moon to change signs in transit. So it takes 2.5 years for the progressed moon to change signs. And it represents your evolving needs and relationships. So when you have progression, when you have your lunar progression go from Pisces to Aries, this is a massive change. Just think about it. Pisces is the final zodiac sign. Aries is the first zodiac sign, so you are making a whole new fresh start. Like you are going right back to the beginning of the zodiac, and this is like a complete fresh start, and the energy is huge. Most progressed lunar changes are a very profound change, so you're going to feel the energy shift. And again, this isn't anything that's controlling you. The progress chart is actually an imaginary chart. It's completely a fabricated, calculated chart. So this isn't even where anything is in the sky at the moment. It's very specific to you, and all it represents is a symbol of what you're going through. So you don't need your chart. You don't need astrology. You don't need your progress chart at all. But if you're trying to find some sort of guidepost to why you're feeling the way you're feeling, why certain relationships in your life are changing, you're attracting different people into your life, the progressed moon is often a good place to start because it literally shows what's going inside of you, your inner emotions, and how that's reflected in your outer relationships. So Pisces progressed moon it's like a notoriously bad time. And the reason is because when your lunar progression goes through Pisces, you're very confused. So I'm going to get to a video on this. I don't believe I have done it yet. I'm going backwards, so I think that's next. But Pisces is ruled by Neptune and Jupiter traditionally, and Neptune is the dissolver of boundaries. So when your moon, which is your emotions, your evolving current emotions, is in Pisces, you have no boundaries. You have a very confusing time deciphering what are your emotions and your feelings and what is the person in front of you or other people. And you can often have like martyr issues and like let people walk all over you. And we'll get more into that when we do the Pisces video. But suffice it to say that it's kind of a hard time. And by the end of your Pisces lunar progression, you tend to be kind of worn out. You may have had this huge spiritual journey during that time. You might not quite know who you are or what you're about. And you've kind of gotten to the point where you have evolved spiritually, and you may have, at this point, had enough of certain relationships that are draining you, that you feel like you are being taken advantage of, where you're playing the victim martyr scenario, codependency, any alcoholic or addiction issues, because Neptune rules addictions. All of these things are coming to a head. So when your lunar progression changes from Pisces to Aries, you are like, I have had enough. And Aries is the baby, it's the infant, right, of the zodiac. This is the spark of life. So all of a sudden, it's like you have this personal internal big bang. Like it's the start of a new 30-year lunar progression cycle through the zodiac, yes. But symbolically, it represents the beginning of everything. So you're feeling inside like this return to yourself, because your boundaries, your energy has been out here, out here, out here, out here. Like it's been all over the place. You've been letting people into your boundaries a little bit too much, and you've maybe been pressing upon theirs a little bit, and you're just like, I need to define self again, because Aries is the quintessential individual, right? This is like, if you think about when our spirit and non-physical comes into the three-dimensional world, the three-dimensional world is defined by definition. I mean, it's literally definition. So if you're in the non-physical, everything is equal, everything is the same, you have equal access to everything. The fifth dimension, it's called, and I've talked about this in some videos recently, but if you're talking about non-physical, the fifth dimension, you're talking about polarity that doesn't exist. So night and day, dark and light, masculine, feminine, they're all together in one point. So when things manifest into the physical world, they split into polarity. And that's where we get masculine and feminine energy from, and the polarities of the signs as well. So Aries represents the ego. It's the ego is the brain, and the brain is what protects us and keeps us alive in this three-dimensional game we're playing. And Aries represents the quintessential I am. Like, who am I? And I am not you. I am not this glass. I am not the water in this glass. I am Abby. I am me. I happen to be a quadruple Aries, so I feel this energy very well, and this is the energy that you will feel when your progressed moon goes into Aries. You will all of a sudden be very focused on yourself, your identification, what it means to be you, to be an individual, to be autonomous, to be, I want to say independent. Independence is one of the number one themes that you're going to be exploring during this 2.5-year period, because what Aries is exploring is to be the self, to be independent, to be an individual completely separate from everyone else. What does that mean? And to everyone, it's a different story as to what it means. So that's what you'll be exploring during this progression. Some themes that are common are typical Aries themes. Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars is the god of war. It's masculine energy in its purest form. It's aggression, assertion, action. Action is the language of the physical world, so action is extremely important. And when your progressed moon was in Pisces, you may have not really been taking action in the physical world. It may have been more about a spiritual, emotional journey for you. Now is the time to walk the walk, so to speak. It's the time to define yourself. And to define yourself in the physical world means you must take action. And that is what Aries is all about. So expect to be an initiator. This is a cardinal energy, which represents the beginning of a season, in this case, the beginning of spring. So you can expect to start a bunch of things during this time frame. Not all of them are going to stick. You're going to throw a lot of things on the wall and see what sticks. So you don't really have to finish and follow through with things at this time. Now is a time to explore. Now is a time to be a pioneer, to start things that you never maybe had the guts to. You're going to have a lot more courage during this time frame. This progression is not for the faint of heart. So if you have like if you have a natal earth moon or a natal water moon, you're going to have a little bit more of a tough time with this because you're going to be called upon to be assertive. So you're going to be in situations that will require you to be assertive, and that can be scary for someone who has like a more passive constitution naturally. So this could be a challenging progression for you. Generally, it feels good, at least in the beginning, for almost everyone, because the Pisces lunar progression is so difficult. It's kind of like the change from Scorpio progress moon to Sagittarius. It's like all of a sudden you are born from the dark into the light. And this has a similar feeling to it, but it's more of a feeling of like conviction and strength when you used to feel like a doormat, if that makes sense. So you'll be drowning in your feelings, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, I'm done with this. I'm sticking up for myself. I'm taking action for me. And it's a time to be selfish. It is definitely a time to assert your own will. So you want to do that during this time frame. It's going to feel good and you're going to do it. Things to watch out for is that you might be overly aggressive, you might be overly competitive, you might get into people's faces, you might actually have fights. I literally had physical fights when I had lunar progression in Aries. I was at college and I like literally started some physical fights. It's like one of my most embarrassing time frames because yeah, I'm pretty sure it was in Aries still and not Taurus, but I remember like going into a frat house and literally starting a fight with like the 15 girls I was with and the girlfriends of the like the fraternity that owned the house, and we were like banned from it, and this is highly embarrassing. And that wasn't even the only fight I got into. Don't forget, I am already like too much Aries going on here. So when my lunar progression was in Aries, it was like forget it. I said things that I very much regretted, like almost immediately, like really like rude things, very blunt and rude things that were kind of aggressive. And it's just a learning experience, very much so. Things I can look back on and be glad that I'm not doing that. Like I'm not that person anymore, but it might not be that severe for you unless you are a fire sign or you have a lot of fire in your chart. Then it might just be like all bets are off. Because the moon represents instincts and the progressed moon is your evolving instincts. So although your natal moon was always your base level, every time you go through a progression, you put a filter on, and it's always like a learning. Like you never go backwards with progression. So during this time frame, you are going to be putting on the Aries filter, and the Aries filter has no filter. You know, like that's what fire signs are. We don't have any filter. So it's going to be like probably embarrassing for you. You're going to leap before you look. You're going to speak before you think, you know, all of those cliches, but it's ultimately a really powerful time. It's a time to, like I said, it's highly creative sign. Aries is one of the most creative signs in the zodiac. So it's time to be creative, time to start things, time to take action, time to try new things, to go where you never thought you would go before, where other people have never gone before. It's a pioneering sign. It's one of my favorite signs personally, and it's just like a refreshing time, and very solitary time as well. You might actually isolate yourself a little bit too much, so don't forget to get out and have fun. So when your progressed moon goes into your first house, there's this very similar feel, but slightly different. So I did want to differentiate this in this video. So when your progressed moon is in the 12th house is the blind spot of the natal chart. So the 12th house is naturally ruled by Pisces, and it dissolves everything in it. So when something goes through your 12th house, if you have a natal planet in your 12th house, if you have a progression in your 12th house, it's mostly about confusion, and you can't pinpoint this planet's energy. For example, if you have natal sun in the 12th house, your ego, which is the sun, like your personality, your identification is going to be dissolving, dissolving, dissolving constantly. The 12th house is like a solvent, it just dissolves. And also, because it's called the blind spot, other people will be able to see whatever planet is in or moving through the 12th house, and you will not be able to. So it's just like a car moving in your blind spot when you're driving. Like other people around you can see it, you cannot see it, not in your mirror. Sometimes if you focus your mirror right so you can see it indirectly, you have to actually like turn to see it. It's awkward. So the reason for this is because the 12th house is like the basement for you. It's like a place where you go and there's cobwebs and you're a little bit nervous. And if you go down there and you shine a light down there, you can see and you're like seeing things you probably don't want to see. And so you're going to go back upstairs as soon as you found what you need. And that's the 12th house. And it's where everything scary lurks for you. It's where all your hidden fears are, all your unconscious stuff. It all goes to the 12th house. And so planets that go through your 12th house, they stir this stuff up. So when you have your pressed moon in the 12th house, your emotions are stirred up. And how you're going to experience this is through like dreams, unconscious things, meditation, even channeling, like very indirect means. And so your needs are not going to be clear at this time. It's going to be confusing. It's going to be a very emotional time. You're going to have like random emotions. And I will get into this more when I do the 12th house lunar progression video. But suffice it to say, when your progressed moon goes into the first house, this is like Pisces to Aries. It's like a huge monumental change. You're literally starting your whole lunar progression over personally because it's hitting your first house. So the 12th house is like all the confusing stuff in your life. The first house is what you're very clear cut on. This is your personality. It's your body, your physical body. And so when your progressed moon goes into the first house, you have to be very careful about weight gain because the moon is emotions. Whenever the moon goes, you tend to have to watch weight gain. It's just like, it might be because we tend to eat more when we're emotional, and the first house represents the physical body. So, like, whenever it hits the angles, too, you have to be careful. Same thing with Jupiter. But with the first house progression, it's just because it's like you're basically wearing your emotions on the outside because it's your outside, it's your physical self, the first house, especially when it gets near the ascendant. So the ascendant is the rising, right? When the moon gets close to the ascendant, be cautious about weight gain. And, the only reason I say this, it's not like weight's going to suddenly appear. You have to be putting things in your mouth to gain weight. Like you have to be eating fiercely to put on weight. So watch what you're putting in your mouth. Like watch if you're sitting on your couch, watching Netflix, or you're in bed all day instead of like getting out and exercising. Like these are just things to be aware of. If you know it's coming in advance, maybe you can plan for it. So that's, sometimes you have to just go through something to get over it. But oftentimes weight gain is emotional itself. It's like you are literally protecting your body. And I've learned in my dietary studies that fat will actually like collect around a toxin in the body. And so I feel like this is a good emotional metaphor because fat is there to protect you. So why are you trying to protect yourself with a layer of fat? Like you have to get through your own emotions before you can actually let the weight go, because otherwise you'll subconsciously keep eating and attracting situations that will make you gain weight, like not moving your body, not exercising, being too fatigued to exercise. So you do kind of have to be a little bit harsh with yourself during this progression and ensure you're not overstuffing your face and that you're actually dealing with your emotions. Other than that, this tends to feel a lot better when the progressed moon was in the 12th house because it was a confusing time. It was a time where you maybe didn't know where you were headed, what your focus was. When it goes into the first house, you can kind of be more honest and open about who you are, about your emotions. They're not hidden. You can be really like forthcoming with them, and you should be, because if you try to hide anything, people are going to like automatically see it. They're just going to be like, you're lying. Like you're hiding something, I can tell. So it's just like a refreshing time to be more authentic and genuine. And it doesn't really matter what sign it's in. I would say like some signs are more difficult to do this. Like if your progressed first house moon is going through Scorpio, it's going to be a little bit more difficult than if it's going through like Leo. You know, it's just whatever your rising is, that's what it's going to be. But it's still like a time of fresh starts. So you can still use some of that Aries energy to initiate, especially where your body's concerned. So you can make fresh starts like to your look, to your health, to your fitness routine, things that have to do with your body, really anything to do with your body. And you can be a little bit more out there with your feelings, like I said. So that is progressed moon in Aries and the first house. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thank you so much for watching and liking and subscribing. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I'm almost at 2,000 followers or subs, and I can't believe that because when I started this channel 4 years ago, I literally started it because I was going through an exceptionally difficult time. My lunar progression in Scorpio, which I talk about in that video. And I was like doped up on Klonopin and all these anti-anxiety and antidepressants and stuff. And I had no control over my life. And I just did this because I was like, I need to help one person out there. And now I have like 2,000 of you that actually listen to what I say. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.